There was a time when a new Call of Duty game didn't just feel like another game coming out. It felt like an event.
Oh, baby, a triple!
You knew it was November because suddenly everyone was online. Your friends were online, your classmates were online, people who barely even played video games were online. And for about a month, there was basically only one question in the classroom. What level are you? Call of Duty was everywhere. Modern Warfare, World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2. For a stretch of about 5 years, maybe even more, Activision somehow managed to release one of the biggest games on Earth every single year. And somehow, none of us were ever sick of it. Actually, it was the opposite. We couldn't get enough. And I think that's what makes modern Call of Duty so strange, because technically, Call of Duty is still a behemoth. This isn't some dead franchise surviving on nostalgia. Black Ops 6 had the biggest launch in franchise history. Microsoft said it set a record for day one players, and by July 2025, more than 50 million people had played it for over 2 billion combined hours. The franchise itself passed 500 million premium game sales back in 2024. So if you only look at Call of Duty on a spreadsheet, there is no problem at all. But if you've actually been around this franchise for a while, something feels different. A new Call of Duty doesn't dominate the conversation the same way. The games blend into each other. The menus look like streaming services. The store is constantly screaming at you. The operators look like they've wandered in from 6 completely different franchises.
Playtime is over when Nikki drops in.
Warzone has slowly swallowed the identity of the traditional game. And after years of seemingly unstoppable dominance, there are finally signs that people might actually be getting tired. Black Ops 7's launch interest on Steam was dramatically lower than Black Ops 6. Battlefield 6 finished 2025 ahead of it in annual US sales, and Activision itself responded by announcing that it would stop releasing back-to-back Modern Warfare or Black Ops games, promising future Call of Duty games would focus on innovation that was, in their words, meaningful rather than incremental. That's a pretty significant admission, because Call of Duty's entire business model has been built on incremental change. So, what happened? How did one of the most influential franchises in gaming history become something that millions of people still play, but fewer and fewer people actually seem to love? To understand that, we have to go all the way back. Before Warzone, before Black Ops, before Modern Warfare, before Call of Duty was even Call of Duty.
Electronic Arts and DreamWorks Interactive present Medal of Honor. Prepare for your finest hour.
Call of Duty's story technically begins with another franchise, Medal of Honor. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Medal of Honor was one of the biggest names in military shooters. And Medal of Honor, Allied Assault, released in 2002, was especially important. The game was incredibly cinematic for its time. You weren't just walking through corridors shooting Nazis. You were storming beaches, fighting alongside squads, watching battles unfold around you. It wanted to make you feel like you were inside a war movie. Several developers who worked on Allied Assault eventually left and formed a new studio called Infinity Ward.
Hey, welcome to Infinity Ward. Come on in.
So glad you can make it today.
Among those was Vince Zampella, Jason West, and Grant Collier. Their studio signed a publishing deal with Activision and began working on a direct competitor to Medal of Honor. Internally, the project was reportedly even referred to as the Medal of Honor Killer. That project became known as Call of Duty. Activision acquired Infinity Ward shortly after the first game launched in 2003, and even in that first game, you can see the philosophy that would eventually define the franchise. Call of Duty wasn't really about making you feel like a superhero, it wanted you to feel like a soldier inside something much bigger than yourself. You fought alongside AI-controlled troops, you moved through huge battles, you switched perspectives between American, British, and Soviet soldiers. The battlefield didn't exist because you had entered it. It felt like the battle would keep happening without you. That sounds basic now, but in 2003, it was incredibly effective. Call of Duty took the cinematic military shooter and turned the spectacle up, and then Call of Duty 2 took that formula onto the Xbox 360. Suddenly, this wasn't just a PC military shooter anymore. It was becoming a console phenomenon. Then, Treyarch entered the rotation. Call of Duty 3 arrived in 2006, and at this point, Activision had something valuable, a successful World War II franchise. They could have just kept doing that. More beaches, more Nazis, more European villages, more explosions, and realistically, it probably would have worked for a while. But Infinity Ward wanted to do something much riskier. They wanted to leave World War II behind completely, and that decision changed video games forever. In 2007, Infinity Ward released Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And I don't think you can really overstate how important this game was, because Modern Warfare didn't just reinvent Call of Duty. It helped create the template for the modern multiplayer shooter. Infinity Ward moved the series into a fictional contemporary conflict. Modern weapons, night vision, helicopters, special forces, airstrikes, nuclear weapons, everything suddenly felt much closer to the military imagery people were seeing on television at the time. The campaign was unbelievable. The sinking ship, the AC-130 missions, all gillied up, the nuclear explosion, the final bridge sequence. Call of Duty had always been cinematic, but Modern Warfare felt like a playable blockbuster film. And then there was the multiplayer. This is where things actually changed. Create a class, weapon attachments, experience points, challenges, perks, kill streaks, persistent progression. You weren't just playing matches anymore. You were constantly working towards something. One attachment, one more weapon, one more level, one more prestige. The game effectively took RPG progression systems and layered them onto an incredibly effective, accessible competitive shooter. Infinity Ward specifically designed the multiplayer around things like customizable weapons and killstreak rewards, creating a loop that rewarded both individual matches and long-term progression. And it was addictive. Beautifully addictive. You could sit down intending to play 3 games and suddenly it was 2 in the morning because you were 8 kills away from unlocking Red Tiger.
It's beautiful. I've looked at this for 5 hours now.
Modern Warfare also found this incredible balance between accessibility and mastery. The basic shooting felt good immediately, but there was always something else to learn. Map routes, grenade spots, weapon builds, perks, spawn logic, killstreak timing, and most importantly, Modern Warfare still had an identity. It knew exactly what it wanted to be. It was a military shooter. The campaign, multiplayer, weapons, UI, music, and art direction all felt like pieces of the same game. That sounds like a strange compliment, but remember that, because it becomes very important later. Modern Warfare was a massive success, so naturally, Activision wanted another Call of Duty the following year, and then another, and this is where Call of Duty's greatest strength was created, and eventually, its greatest weakness.
Mason, my friend, tell me, what is left to believe in when you are betrayed?
Well, Fall of Modern Warfare might be the greatest run any multiplayer shooter franchise had ever had. World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, 5 games, 5 years, and almost every one of them has a legitimate argument for being somebody's favorite Call of Duty ever made. World at War arrived in 2008. On paper, going back to World War II immediately after Modern Warfare sounded like a step backwards, but Treyarch made it work by leading it to something much darker. World at War was brutal. Bodies were blown apart, people burned alive. The Pacific Theater felt filthy and claustrophobic. The Eastern Front felt hopeless. And then after finishing the campaign, players discovered this strange little bonus mode. You were trapped inside a building. Nazi soldiers were climbing through windows, except they were dead. Nazi zombies. What began as a strange bonus became one of Call of Duty's most beloved modes, and that was one of the great things that came about from this era. The studios were allowed to have personality. Infinity Ward's Call of Duty did not feel like Treyarch's Call of Duty, and that was good. Then came Modern Warfare 2, and this is where Call of Duty stopped being merely popular, and it became a cultural phenomenon. Modern Warfare 2 generated approximately 550 million in worldwide sales in its first 5 days, which Activision described at the time as the biggest entertainment launch in history. And if you were around gaming in 2009, you could feel it. Terminal, High-Rise, Favela, Rust, Intervention, One-Man Army, Commando Pro, Dual 1887s, the Tactical Nuke. Was Modern Warfare 2 balanced? Absolutely not. But that's part of why people remember it. It was chaos. Beautiful, completely irresponsible chaos. Everything felt powerful and everything felt slightly broken. And because everything was broken, somehow it almost balanced itself. Then there was the campaign. No Russian, the betrayal, the Washington DC invasion, Shepard, Soap, Price, Ghost. Call of Duty was producing characters and moments that players genuinely remembered, and then Treyarch responded with Black Ops, my personal favorite. A completely different tone. Cold War conspiracies, brainwashing, number stations, Vietnam, the CIA, Alex Mason, Victor Reznov. The numbers, Mason, what do they mean? Black Ops made more than $650 million worldwide in its first 5 days and crossed the $1 billion in sales shortly afterwards. And somehow the multiplayer and zombies were just as important. Nuketown became one of the most recognizable multiplayer maps ever made. It became so iconic that they keep bringing it back because they simply cannot top it. Zombies became increasingly elaborate. Easter eggs turned into storylines. Characters became icons. Then Modern Warfare 3 arrived, and then Black Ops 2. And Black Ops 2 is maybe the perfect example of what Call of Duty used to understand. You can keep the basic formula while still making the game feel new. Black Ops 2 moved into the near future. It experimented with branching campaign decisions. It introduced the Pick 10 create a class system. Score streaks rewarded objectives rather than only kills. League play pushed competitive Call of Duty further. Zombies became more ambitious. The weapons looked different. The maps looked different. The music felt different. The color palette felt different. Even the menus felt different. And that's the thing I miss the most about this era. Each Call of Duty had its own personality and identity. You could show me a screenshot of World at War, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, and Black Ops 2, and without a logo anywhere on the screen, even the HUD turned off, I could probably tell you which game I was looking at almost immediately. They belonged to the same franchise, but they weren't trying to become the same product. Unfortunately, while players were enjoying Call of Duty's golden age, behind the scenes, Activision was learning a very different lesson. Call of Duty worked every year, so Call of Duty needed to release every year, forever. Annual releases weren't necessarily a problem at first. Activision had multiple studios working in rotation. Infinity Ward, Treyarch, eventually Sledgehammer Games. While one game was being released, another studio could already be years into development on the next one. In theory, it was brilliant, and financially, it absolutely was. Call of Duty essentially became gaming's version of annual sports franchises. Every fall, new game, new campaign, new multiplayer, new progression, new maps, new guns, millions of copies sold, repeat. But something important had changed behind the scenes before players really started noticing. In 2010, Infinity Ward's founders, Jason West and Vince Zampella, were fired by Activision following a highly publicized dispute. A significant group of Infinity Ward employees eventually left as well. West and Zampella would go on to establish Respawn Entertainment, the studio behind Titanfall and eventually Apex Legends.
Correct. My original pilot was KIA. I am now linked to Rifleman Jack Cooper.
Please, if anyone's listening to this, give us a Titanfall 3. I'm begging you.
Just call anonymously. You call anonymously! I can't! They know me. They know my voice. They'll know me. Please, you gotta do it for me. I'm begging you. Please.
So, Call of Duty continued. Obviously, Modern Warfare 3 was still enormous, Black Ops 2 was still fantastic, but one of the creative teams responsible for building Call of Duty into what it had become had fractured. Around the same time, Call of Duty was becoming less like a franchise Activision published, and more like the center of Activision itself. When something becomes that valuable, risk starts to look different. Experiments become dangerous. Delays become expensive. A mediocre Call of Duty launching in November can still make an unbelievable amount of money. A brilliant Call of Duty missing November makes nothing during Christmas. And slowly, the release date became sacred. Then came 2013, Call of Duty Ghosts. Now, Ghosts wasn't terrible, and I think that's important to note because Call of Duty's decline wasn't caused by one catastrophic game. There was no single moment where everyone suddenly stopped caring. It just happened gradually. Ghosts just felt less special. It felt really rushed. The characters weren't as memorable, the maps became more controversial and difficult, and the tone felt strangely muted. And commercially, Activision later reported lower performance from Ghosts compared to the other Call of Duties. That was the first sign that the formula wasn't completely bulletproof. Then came Advanced Warfare. And honestly, I respect Advanced Warfare more now than I did then, because at least it tried to do something different. Exoskeletons completely changed movement. Boost jumps, air dashes, vertical combat. Call of Duty was responding to a shooter market that was becoming more futuristic. The problem was that Call of Duty then kept going. Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, jetpacks, wall running, robots, space, more futuristic weapons, more advanced movement. By the time Infinite Warfare was revealed, parts of the audience were exhausted. The franchise that became famous for making modern military combat feel immediate and grounded was now fighting in space? Activision itself later acknowledged softness around Infinite Warfare when discussing declining Activision monthly active users in early 2017, and another problem had emerged. Monetization. Call of Duty had always sold map packs, but now supply drops became increasingly prominent. Random rewards, cosmetics, weapons, variants. Call of Duty wasn't simply asking you to buy the game anymore. It was learning how valuable the player could be after buying the game. That distinction would eventually reshape the entire franchise. Activision responded to the futuristic fatigue by doing exactly what the fans had been asking for. Call of Duty went back to World War II.
They have set upon a mighty endeavor. Souls will be shaken with the violences of war. In this hour of great sacrifice, we shall prevail.
Get your head down and keep moving!
Call of Duty World War II released in 2017. No jetpacks, no wall running, no space battles, just boots on the ground. It wasn't perfect, but it represented something important. Activision understood that Call of Duty had drifted too far from what people associated with the franchise, so they pulled it back. Then Treyarch released Black Ops 4 in 2018, and Black Ops 4 is a fascinating game in hindsight because you could almost see Call of Duty's future being constructed behind it. There was no traditional campaign. That alone was shocking. For years, Call of Duty had been built around three major pillars: campaign, multiplayer, and depending on the game, zombies or spec ops. Black Ops 4 sacrificed the campaign, and instead we got Blackout? Call of Duty's first attempt at Battle Royale. Fortnite and PUBG had changed the industry. Everyone wanted a Battle Royale game. And Blackout was actually not bad, and it proved that Call of Duty's mechanics worked incredibly well in that format. Large map, looting, vehicles, Call of Duty gameplay, one life, last player standing. Activision now had the foundation for something much larger. But first, Call of Duty needed another reboot.
Bravo 6. Going dark.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare released in 2019, and for the first time in years, Call of Duty felt dangerous again. Infinity Ward rebuilt the technology behind the franchise. Weapons had incredible animation, reloads felt tactile, sound design was oppressive, the lighting was beautiful, movement had weight, doors could be opened slowly, guns could be mounted against surfaces. The campaign returned to controversial contemporary military subject matter. Whatever you thought about some of its storytelling decisions, Modern Warfare had an identity. It wanted to feel grounded, it wanted to feel uncomfortable, it wanted you to believe the weapons in your hands were actual mechanical objects rather than laser pointers with weapon skins attached. And people responded. Modern Warfare generated more than $600 million in sales in its first 3 days. Call of Duty was relevant again. And then in March 2020, Activision released something that might have saved Call of Duty and eventually helped destroy the Call of Duty it used to be. Call of Duty Warzone. Warzone was Call of Duty's Battle Royale, but unlike Blackout, Warzone was free. You didn't have to spend $60. You didn't need Modern Warfare. You downloaded it, you dropped into Verdansk, and you played. The timing could not have been more significant. Warzone launched in March of 2020, right as huge parts of the world were entering COVID lockdowns. Suddenly, millions of people were stuck at home, and Warzone became the place everyone meant. Verdansk, the Gulag, loadout drops, heartbeat sensors, buy stations, armor plates, contracts. Warzone took the basic Battle Royale formula and made it faster, more aggressive, more Call of Duty, and it exploded. By April of 2021, Warzone had passed 100 million players. Activision reported Call of Duty premium game sales had surpassed 400 million units by that point. In 2020 alone, more than 200 million people played Call of Duty across the franchise, and Activision reported more than $3 billion in Call of Duty net bookings over the preceding 12 months. Warzone had taken Call of Duty to another level, but it also changed the incentives. Think about old Call of Duty. You bought Modern Warfare 2, that was the product. Then the next year you bought Black Ops. That was a different product, different progression, different maps, different weapons, different identity. Warzone changed that. Now Activision didn't want you leaving. They wanted one persistent Call of Duty ecosystem. The premium game could feed Warzone. Warzone could advertise the premium game. It was like a loop. Battle Pass progression could connect them. Weapons could connect them. Operators could connect them. Cosmetics could connect them. Everything could become part of one giant Call of Duty platform. From a business perspective, this makes complete sense. From an artistic perspective, this is where Call of Duty began losing something. Because when everything has to connect, nothing can truly stand alone. Black Ops Cold War released in 2020, then Vanguard in 2021, then Modern Warfare 2 in 2022. Instead of each game simply existing in its own thing, they increasingly existed inside a larger ecosystem. Warzone seasons, shared progression, operator bundles, battle passes, cross-game content. Weapon metas, constant updates, constant balance changes, constant reasons to log back in, and financially, it was great for Activision. But the more Call of Duty became a service, the less important each Call of Duty became. Cold War had its own aesthetic, its own guns, its own mechanics, its own identity, but it also had to feed Warzone. Vanguard had to feed Warzone, Modern Warfare 2 had to feed Warzone, Modern Warfare 3 had to feed Warzone. Eventually, operators and weapons started carrying between games. Activision officially marketed Modern Warfare 3 around carry forward, allowing Modern Warfare 2 weapons, operators, and skins to transfer directly into the next game. That's convenient for players who bought cosmetics, but think about what it means for the identity of the game. If every cosmetic needs to remain relevant, the next game can't completely reset. The slate can't ever truly be cleaned. And that's how you go from grounded soldiers to celebrity operators, to crossover characters, to glowing animated weapon blueprints, to skins that look like they belong in Fortnite. I'm not even saying those skins shouldn't exist. I mean, people clearly buy them. What do I know? That's why they're here. The problem is that old Call of Duty sold you a fantasy. Modern Warfare sold you the fantasy of modern military operations. World at War sold you the horror of World War II. Black Ops sold you the Cold War paranoia. Modern Warfare Call of Duty is increasingly selling you Call of Duty. That brand has become the aesthetic. And around this time, the annual release cycle began showing serious cracks. Vanguard underperformed compared to Black Ops Cold War and Activision's own financial reporting. Then Modern Warfare 2 came out in 2022 and immediately proved Call of Duty still had unbelievable commercial power. It passed $1 billion in revenue in just 10 days, the fastest a Call of Duty game had ever reached that milestone at the time. So again, this wasn't a dead franchise, but the games themselves increasingly felt like they were being built around systems rather than ideas. Then came Call of Duty HQ.
What the is this piece of
Instead of simply clicking Modern Warfare 2 and launching Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty became this unified launcher. Games, Warzone, store, battle pass, events, advertisements, more games, older games, new games.
Tiana, Khadijah, Lenny Carvel, him, her, him, bodies.
It felt less like launching a video game, more like navigating Netflix with an assault rifle. Activision eventually acknowledged the friction and redesigned the interface. In 2024, it announced a more streamlined Call of Duty landing page, and by the Black Ops 6 launch, the company had retired the Call of Duty HQ name for the redesigned UI. That tells you something. The franchise had become so interconnected that simply figuring out how to present it to the player had become complicated. And then, Modern Warfare 3 happened. Modern Warfare 3 released in 2023, and more than any Call of Duty before it, it felt like a product created because a Call of Duty game needed to release that year. Reports after launch said the game had been developed on an unusually compressed schedule of roughly 16 months following changes in scope during production, and you could feel it. The multiplayer leaned heavily on remastered maps from 2009's Modern Warfare 2. Weapons and operators carried forward from Modern Warfare 2. Even visually, the two games were extremely similar. And the campaign was probably the biggest warning sign. Call of Duty campaigns had always been short, but they were usually incredibly curated, scripted, explosive. Every few minutes had something ridiculous happen. A helicopter crashed, a building exploded, someone betrayed you, a nuclear bomb went off. Modern Warfare 3's campaign introduced more open combat missions that reused larger spaces and allowed players to approach objectives more freely. And theoretically, that sounds good. More player freedom sounds fun. But Call of Duty campaigns were never special because they gave you freedom. They were special because they didn't. They grabbed you by the collar and dragged you through the best action movie you ever played. Modern Warfare 3 felt like the machine showing through the paint. This game had to exist, so it existed. And that's maybe the fundamental problem with this annual Call of Duty. Eventually, you stop asking whether you have a great idea for a Call of Duty game, and you start asking, what is this year's Call of Duty game going to be? Those are not the same, and that's not the same circumstances. And you can see the quality of the Call of Duty's dip, and the identity of the Call of Duty's disappear because of it. Now, we have to talk about Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard. The biggest change in franchise history happened outside the games themselves. The deal was originally valued at $68.7 billion and finally closed in October of 2023. Xbox now owned Call of Duty, one of the biggest entertainment properties on Earth, and immediately everyone wondered what that meant. Would Call of Duty become exclusive? Would the annual cycle finally stop? Would Activision Studios get more time? Would Call of Duty come to Game Pass? Eventually, yes. At least that last one. Black Ops 6 became the first new Call of Duty to launch directly into Game Pass. And strangely enough, Black Ops 6 looked like it might be the game that finally proved the franchise had figured itself out again. Black Ops 6 was actually pretty good. Treyarch had significantly more development time than they had on previous games. Round-based zombies properly returned, the campaign experimented again, Omni movement genuinely changed how multiplayer felt. The game had color, personality, energy. For a moment, Call of Duty felt exciting again.
We are back, baby. We are fucking back. We're back. Classic. We are back.
And commercially, it exploded. Microsoft called Black Ops 6 the biggest Call of Duty launch ever. It set a franchise record for day one players. It generated a record number of Game Pass subscriber additions on launch day. And PlayStation and Steam unit sales were more than 60% higher year over year compared with the previous Call of Duty launches. By July 2025, Microsoft said 50 million players had played Black Ops 6 for more than 2 billion hours. So, problem solved, right? Not exactly. Because then came Black Ops 7.
What the is this piece of
And suddenly, something changed. Black Ops 7 released in 2025, and despite Call of Duty still being one of the biggest franchises on Earth, the signs of fatigue became much harder to ignore. On Steam, launch day activity was roughly 1/3 of what Black Ops 6 had attracted at a comparable point. Battlefield 6 and Arc Raiders were pulling significantly larger concurrent players on Steam around launch. In the United States, Black Ops 7 still managed to become November 2025's fastest selling game because, again, Call of Duty is massive. But full game dollar sales for the franchise were down by a double-digit percentage compared to November 2024. And by that point, Battlefield 6 was the best-selling game of 2025 in the US, while Black Ops 7 sat substantially lower on the annual chart. That matters, because Call of Duty had spent so long being essentially inevitable. For nearly 2 decades, you could assume the year's Call of Duty would be somewhere near the top, regardless of what people online were complaining about. And now there was finally evidence that this fatigue might be escaping Reddit posts and YouTube comments, and reaching actual consumer behavior. Activision responded in 2025 with a remarkable statement. The company said it would no longer release back-to-back Modern Warfare or Black Ops titles. Activision itself was effectively acknowledging the problem. Too much repetition, not enough differentiation. Not enough reason for Call of Duty this year to exist beyond the fact that Call of Duty comes out every year. And this brings us to the important part. Because I don't think we can simply say that Call of Duty is dying because the gunplay became bad. The gunplay is still excellent. I don't think it's dying because the developers suddenly became incompetent. Some of the most talented shooter developers in the industry still work on these games. And I definitely don't think it's dying because nobody plays Call of Duty anymore. Millions do. Call of Duty is dying in a much stranger way. It's dying culturally. I think there's several reasons why. Reason number one being that there's simply too much Call of Duty. Call of Duty has released essentially every year for more than 2 decades. Think about how absurd that is. Imagine getting a new Grand Theft Auto every November, a new Red Dead Redemption every November, a new God of War every November. Eventually, the releases itself stop feeling special. There is no absence, and absence is important. You need time to miss something. Rockstar disappears for years and then releases one GTA trailer and the internet breaks. Call of Duty releases a reveal trailer and the response is incredibly, "Oh, another Call of Duty trailer just dropped. Cool." Activision conditioned us to stop viewing Call of Duty releases as events. They became appointments. Reason number 2 is that the games lost their individual identities. This might be the biggest one for me. Older Call of Duty games had personality. World at War wasn't trying to be Modern Warfare. Black Ops wasn't trying to be Modern Warfare 2. Black Ops 2 wasn't trying to preserve every weapon and cosmetic you earned from Black Ops 1. They could reinvent themselves. Today, everything has to fit into that Call of Duty ecosystem. Everything needs seasonal content. Everything needs operators or bundles or Warzone integration or progression hooks. Everything needs to eventually sell you on something. So the individual game becomes secondary. Modern Warfare isn't just Modern Warfare. It's the Modern Warfare section of Call of Duty. Black Ops isn't just Black Ops. It's another content stream flowing into Call of Duty. And when everything becomes Call of Duty, nothing feels like Call of Duty. Reason 3 is Warzone ate the franchise. Warzone was one of the best things to happen to Call of Duty, don't get me wrong, but I think it also might have been the worst. Warzone introduced millions of people to the franchise. It gave Call of Duty a persistent free-to-play experience. It made the series culturally dominant again. But Activision understandably reorganized the franchise around that success. The premium game became connected to Warzone. Weapons needed to work in Warzone. Progression needed to work in Warzone. Cosmetics needed to work in Warzone. Seasons needed to feed Warzone. Balance decisions now existed in this giant interconnected ecosystem. Call of Duty stopped being a collection of games, it became infrastructure, and infrastructure is rarely exciting. Reason number 4, monetization changed the visual identity. I know people sometimes dismiss cosmetic complaints with, "just don't buy them." And sure, fair enough. But cosmetics affect more than your character. They affect the world you're looking at and your immersion. If I'm playing a gritty military shooter and somebody runs around the corner as Nicki Minaj, I still see it. You can't say it doesn't affect gameplay. It absolutely does. It affects the tone. Old Call of Duty understood visual cohesion. Modern Warfare looked like Modern Warfare. World at War looked like World at War. Now a Call of Duty lobby can sometimes look like a convention where everyone misunderstood the dress code. And again, understand why. People buy this stuff. Financially, this is rational. Creatively, there is a cost. Reason number 5 is that every match feels like work. Activision has confirmed that player skill is one of the factors used when constructing multiplayer matches. The company says its testing has shown that widening skill disparities can increase quitting and reduce player retention. I understand the logic. A brand new player probably shouldn't spend their first 10 matches getting nuked by someone who has been playing since 2007. But there's a reason a section of the Call of Duty community constantly complains about skill-based matchmaking. Older public matches felt unpredictable. Sometimes you destroyed everyone. Sometimes someone destroyed you. Sometimes you got an absurd lobby and stayed in it for hours. Modern Call of Duty can feel much more controlled. You have a great match and suddenly the next lobby feels like you've accidentally qualified for the Call of Duty League. For competitive players, that's fine. That's what ranked exists for. But casual multiplayer works because not every game feels like an exam. There should be room to mess around. Use a stupid weapon, try a terrible class, talk to people, stay in the same lobby, build little rivalries. Call of Duty became obsessed with optimizing engagement, and sometimes optimization, min-maxing, kills spontaneity. Reason 6. Nostalgia became content. Nuketown, Shipment, Rust, Terminal, Verdansk, Rebirth Island. How many times can Call of Duty bring these things back? At first, it's exciting. You look at it and you're like, oh my god, Rust is back. I remember this. And then Rust comes back again and again and again. Eventually, nostalgia stops being a celebration of your history and starts looking like an inability to create a future. Modern Warfare 3 launching with a multiplayer lineup built around remaster maps from the original Modern Warfare 2 is basically the perfect example of this. Call of Duty knows what people loved. The problem is that sometimes it seems more comfortable reselling the memory than understanding why we loved it. We didn't love Modern Warfare 2 because High Rise existed. We loved High Rise because it existed inside Modern Warfare 2. The moment, the weapons, the progression, the people we played with, the music, the menus, the chaos. You cannot recreate 2009 by importing a map file. And I think this is the ultimate tragedy of Call of Duty. It became too big to fail. Call of Duty became too successful. Activision perfected it. 3 major development studios, support studios, shared technology, annual releases, Warzone, mobile, battle passes, bundles, esports, crossovers, seasonal updates, unified counts, shared progression, everything designed to keep Call of Duty moving forever. But creativity is messy. Great games sometimes need another year. Sometimes an idea doesn't work. Sometimes you need to throw something away. Sometimes you need 5 years. Call of Duty doesn't have that luxury because Call of Duty isn't just a video game anymore. It's a fiscal quarter, it's a platform, it's a subscription driver, it's a storefront, it's an ecosystem. It's one of the centerpieces of Microsoft's gaming business after a $68.7 billion acquisition. There are simply too many financial expectations attached to it. So the machine has to keep moving, even when the audience is tired, even when the developers need more time, even when the franchise has nothing particularly new to say. And that's why Modern Warfare 3 bothered me so much. Because it wasn't the worst game ever made. It wasn't. But because it felt like Call of Duty fulfilling an obligation. And games should never feel like obligations. There have been other warning signs too. Activision tried expanding Warzone into mobile in March of 2024. Less than 2 years later, the company shut down Warzone Mobile entirely on April 17th of 2026, after saying it had failed to meet expectations with mobile-first players. That doesn't mean Call of Duty Mobile itself is failing, it isn't, but it shows something important. The Call of Duty ecosystem can't expand forever simply because the Call of Duty name is attached to something. And after Black Ops 7's decline, Activision changing its release strategy feels like another sign that even the company itself knows the old model is reaching its limit. Which brings us to 2026 and Modern Warfare 4. So, can Modern Warfare 4 save Call of Duty? Well, it releases on October 23rd, 2026, with Infinity Ward being back as the head development studio. And for the first time in a while, I think Call of Duty actually has something to prove. Not financially, it will probably make an absurd amount of money. Microsoft knows that, Activision knows that, everyone knows that. Call of Duty usually does. But creatively, Activision has already promised more meaningful differentiation between annual releases. Call of Duty doesn't need another content package, it doesn't need 60 more weapon blueprints, it doesn't need 12 more crossover operators, it doesn't need a new version of shipment, it just needs an identity. Make Modern Warfare feel like Modern Warfare. Let Infinity Ward build a grounded military shooter. Then let Treyarch disappear for a while and make the weirdest Black Ops game imaginable. Let Sledgehammer Games build something completely different. Stop forcing every game to become the same flavor of Call of Duty. Let them breathe, and maybe skip a year if that's what the game needs. Because absence wouldn't kill Call of Duty. I think absence might genuinely save it. Because here's the thing. Call of Duty is one of the most important gaming franchises ever created. It redefined cinematic shooters. It completely changed multiplayer progression. It created some of gaming's most recognizable maps, some of its most iconic characters, some of its biggest controversies, and some of its biggest and most cherished memories. Modern Warfare changed shooters. World at War gave us zombies. Modern Warfare 2 became a cultural phenomenon. Black Ops where Treyarch could build something completely different. Black Ops 2 showed us how much you could innovate without abandoning Call of Duty's foundation. And Warzone reinvented the franchise for an entirely new generation. This series has sold more than 500 million premium games. You don't do that by accident. But somewhere along the way, Call of Duty stopped chasing moments and started chasing retention. It stopped building individual games and started building an ecosystem. It stopped asking what would make an incredible Call of Duty and started asking what does Call of Duty need this year? And those two questions produced very different games. That's why I don't think Call of Duty is dead. Honestly, we're probably decades away from Call of Duty potentially disappearing. That name is too valuable. That audience is too large. The gunplay is too good, and the machine is simply just too powerful and too big to fail. But Call of Duty is facing something much more dangerous than death. It's indifference. Because people getting angry about your game isn't the worst thing that can happen. People hated jetpacks, people hated supply drops, people hated Infinity Ward, people hated Infinite Warfare. People argued about skill-based matchmaking. They cared enough to be angry. The real danger is when a new Call of Duty gets announced and people just shrug. When the trailer drops and it feels like content. When the beta arrives and you've already played something that feels almost exactly like it. When November arrives and you don't feel like you're missing anything by sitting this one out. Call of Duty spent 20 years teaching the gaming industry how to keep players coming back. Now it has to relearn something much simpler. How to make us want to come back. Because I don't miss Call of Duty because it used to have fewer skins. I don't miss it because I hate every new game. I don't miss it because everything was magically better when we were younger. I miss Call of Duty because there was a time when every game felt like it had something to prove. A time where Modern Warfare could completely redefine the series. When World at War could surprise us with zombies. When Black Ops could turn a military shooter into a psychological conspiracy thriller. When Black Ops 2 could jump into the future and somehow make it work. These games weren't afraid of replacing themselves. Modern Call of Duty is, and ironically, the franchise became so obsessed with keeping everything that it solely lost the thing that made people fall in love with it in the first place. Its identity. That is what happened to Call of Duty.